welcome to the first 2025 episode of Broadsheets, a political panel show. And today I am joined by Will Upton and Chloe Macaulay.
Hello.
Hello.
So the first topic for us to talk about this week in British politics is the Renters' Rights Bill. What do you guys know about this?
Well, I know there's a big focus on Section 21, which is the no-fault evictions. And obviously, we're all students, so we kind of have an idea of how it can be kind of taken advantage of to benefit landlords over students. Yes.
I know that a while ago some of your friends faced a no-fault eviction.
I can't remember now. It's been so long now. They had run into some complications, and it had led to the people who own the house basically removing them for a time, and it just kind of gave them a really bad experience with it. But
now, rent isn't just an issue that affects students. There's going to be millions of people who will be affected.
So many families, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I think to put it simply, it's great for tenants, this bill, but not so great for the landlords, which is good and bad because not all landlords are exploiting their tenants. So they limit their profits as well. But yeah, because of, for all the tenants that have had to deal with all of these terrible things that some landlords are doing, it's great news.
Yeah, so there's actually been criticism from different political commentators about the fact that we actually need this bill. So why do you think it's taken so long for people to start paying attention to what tenants need rather than the landlords?
I don't know, maybe it was just because of the former government, maybe prioritising different sections, but I don't know, I guess they just probably maybe didn't think it was as big an issue. So now that we're in a different government, and I guess also they are in the early stages of their administration, so I guess you're kind of, because did they mention it in their, is it called a manifesto? In their promises before they came into power, did they mention it?
There was definitely a focus on people, and this is an issue that affects people much more than business.
Yeah. I did watch there was an Angela Rayner interview with ITV. I got some quotes down because, prepared. And so she made a very big emphasis on fairness in the system, and kind of that not that they're not going to favour just tenants. They'll also look at landlords favourably as well, because she said landlords have an important role to play in keeping tenants safe. Yeah, so she said that she wants to call time on the bad ones, which is good because it's not going after all landlords, mainly just the ones which kind of taken advantage of the system, and that kind of gives me hope that it won't just be this widespread thing which impacts all landlords. Yeah, it's a little bit like the farm inheritance tax. It's only going to go after the stuff which is kind of bad in the system, and I hope that's what happens. Anyway.
Yeah, it's like a human right for people to live comfortably, and I think it was just a bit of a shame that it had to take a bill for people to actually own up to their wrongdoing, I guess, not paying attention to whatever, if there was mould, if the no fault eviction as well. So it's really good in the sense that people won't be worried that they'll be kicked out over nothing, or if a tenant and landlord had a dispute over something, they couldn't just kick them out. They actually have to have reasonable grounds to it. I think that's a really good thing. That's really positive.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you mentioned, Will, is that this is something of the Labour government. Now, if we look at how all the MPs voted in the Commons, there was 440 in favour of this bill and 111 against. And what's really interesting is the ones against are all Conservative or Reform MPs. None of the other party voted in favour, but then none of the parties voted against. So it really was a difference between Blue and everyone else.
What's the level of Labour's majority in Parliament? Sorry if I put you on the spot. I just want to try and figure out.
They had a significant majority of like 326 at the election, but we've seen quite a few suspensions.
Yeah.
Some temporary, some a bit more permanent.
Yeah.
So it's decreased, but all Labour are in favour of this renters' rights bill.
Definitely.
That's interesting. It shows who's in favour of which side of it.
Yeah. Were there any, not to bring them up, but were there any people who weren't in just the Conservative or Labour parties which voted against it?
It was just Reform and Conservative, all Reform.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No one else?
No one else.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I think this is the biggest different, like the biggest, most notable.
Yeah, like there's like a line where you can kind of...
You can actually see it, yeah.
Yeah, like there's a very clear indication.
Yeah, definitely a party-based decision. Now, talking of suspended MPs, there is one MP who's caused quite a few headlines, but not even in no more than a month she's been in the headlines. That's Tulip Sadiq. So the Daily Express has called her incident of the past month a giant blow for Starmer. So if you didn't know, I'm guessing you both are aware, but for those who are listening and watching online, so Tulip Sadiq has been linked to a corruption incident involving her aunt, the deposed Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, and this came out by the Financial Times and the Sunday Times, exposing her being named in court documents and associated with 2 properties in London that were linked to her aunt and her aunt's party. And it's really just interesting. Like, the party's prided itself, the Labour Party's prided itself in integrity, and then this happens, and then only when she's exposed by the newspapers is when she refers herself to the anti-corruption probe.
Isn't part of her post like looking over things like corruption?
Yeah, that's
well.
the most ironic aspect of this. She's a Treasury Minister, so she holds responsibility, and yet she, wasn't, being responsible.
It's not great for the Labour credibility.
So do you think Tulip Sadiq should have resigned sooner?
I think it's kind of like you can't really resign until you've kind of had an allegation against you. So I think it's only because of recently that she's had to resign.
She probably wouldn't have if this didn't come to light.
It's only because she's been caught that she has.
It really makes you wonder, what are other people doing that hasn't came out yet?
I think more background checks need to happen.
Definitely.
For the people that run this country, because they're in charge of us and our livelihoods.
But what does this say to the public about their politicians?
Doesn't look good, especially this
they can
early
let
on.
in.
Yeah, the fact it's this early on in the administration is worrying, because it kind of
half a year.
Yeah,
it's not long at all.
Yeah, it's not even gotten to the point where Rishi Sunak had to announce the general election last year when we're already facing issues. So I don't know. We'll see how they go in the next few years, but if there's more scandals coming out about the different Labour MPs, it might affect their chances in the next general election.
I mean, there's still time, and
definitely.
We don't know what's going to happen with the other parties. Elon Musk is no longer backing Nigel Farage at the moment. They could have a little reunion because they're both Trump supporters ahead of Trump's inauguration coming up. That could actually lead us on to Elon Musk's involvement in British politics, which came as a bit of a surprise because he's just dug out this, bit more historic scandals. So he's done his research and he's found one big issue and just brought it back into the spotlight using his massive following and platform. So what can you both tell me about his involvement in the grooming gang scandal in the UK? Will's going through his notes.
I've got pages.
A verbal essay is coming to us.
So I know there's a very big focus on the right for kind of national
national inquiry.
Yeah, a national inquiry to be done, and Labour's a lot more local. So yeah, I think definitely national is the way to go, just because it's like, because you want to make it widespread.
And that's
you
what's happening now that the Home Secretary's called for it.
Yeah.
But this has happened, there's already been a national inquiry. And the woman who sort of led it, Professor J, in 2014, so that's 11 years ago, she has rejected the calls for the national inquiry, saying that victims actually want solutions rather than for it to be reinvestigated. Yeah.
It's just whether, like, something comes out of this, because inquiries are, kind of thrown around a lot.
And they take a long time.
Exactly. And, it's just whether they make a plan after this inquiry. Like, an inquiry doesn't necessarily mean that action is going to be had. So we need to protect, like, our children as well.
Definitely.
So it's really important that something happens.
I think you can definitely start locally, but I think as work goes on, you should probably start to branch out and become more national with how you deal with the problem.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a nationwide, it was across the country, but it was happening on a localised scale. So do you think that might be why Labour are focusing on a local inquiry? Initially were, now that they've changed their mind.
Maybe it's because it's come to light in certain parts of the country over others, like some cases have been reported in.
Like Rotherham and Coventry,
I think it's interesting that Musk has decided to focus on this. Because it has like an emotional, like, it's got like an emotional foundation behind it. Because obviously people want to protect the people that they know. So I guess that's kind of taking advantage of people's emotions, which is kind of like what's like the goal in the end is you want to kind of get people to feel something for something. Because that's like, it's like a saying like apathy is the, like, something about apathy and people not caring is how you kind of lose. So by getting something which has such a strong emotional background, you can kind of get people to support it more. So
it's easier for people to agree with him.
Definitely. Because like you can't like say that you don't want grooming gangs to not have something done with them. So
I mean, the reason nothing really was done at the start is because local groups were concerned that by raising awareness of them, they would appear as like racist because it was Pakistani grooming gangs. So it seems like there could be a focus on the race element, but not totally on the victim element recently. The power of social media, like if it wasn't for like Elon Musk's now X, without all the regulations and changes he's made, this might not have happened. This grooming gang scandal might not have been brought back to the public forefront. Do you think it is good that he brought awareness to the topic?
I think it's good that he's brought it up because it was an issue which has been going on for a long time, which hasn't really been resolved. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I think focusing on it is definitely important, and it's something that needs to get solved.
It's interesting how he's so interested and involved in British politics. But it's just whether he actually has like the credibility to speak about it to like, because he owns a whole social media platform to all of his followers, and his stuff gets pushed out a lot on the platform. So it's whether he actually has like the ethos for it.
And he brought back Tommy Robinson into the limelight, who is currently jailed for contempt of court. And this has caused a divide between the one party that he was quite involved in, the Reform Party, with Nigel Farage.
Until he said that he didn't have what it takes for Farage to be the leader of the party. Yeah,
so this is the consequences of Elon Musk getting involved in politics has brought awareness to a very important topic, but also caused unexpected rifts between what we thought was going to be a really strong alliance.
I think part of it is to do with PR, because obviously you don't want to be linked to a character like Tommy Robinson and be on record supporting someone like that.
Well, you might, depending on where you stand on Tommy Robinson.
So. I mean, if your fan base, I guess you could call them, like him, and then you go on record saying that you don't, I guess it could cause a divide, but I'm not seeing that much of a divide between Reform supporters and Nigel Farage.
Because of Elon Musk.
Yeah, like I'm surprised that like because Elon Musk has said I don't think he is suited to be the party leader, I'm surprised that the Reform supporters aren't going with what Elon Musk has said and are still remaining quite loyal to Nigel Farage.
Do either of you think that Elon Musk and Nigel Farage will reconcile?
Ooh.
Because they're both prominent figures in politics, in British politics now.
They both have quite big egos. And that's kind of the case with most of these populist characters.
Elon Musk is quite like straight. He's like, oh, Farage does not have what it takes.
Yeah. And
so
I guess Nigel Farage is also looking at it through more of a reputation and a political standpoint. So
I can't seem to remember how Farage acknowledged that comment, but I think maybe in the future, because of their political standings and they're quite similar, they can get back together.
Yeah.
Sounds like they're a couple.
Because Nigel Farage, and I've had this kind of like phrase in like the back of my mind a lot. He wants to be in the room where it happened, you know, because like he wanted to be the main like a communicator between the UK and America. Because when Donald Trump became president-elect, he immediately jumped on the relations bandwagon to try and ease tensions between the UK and what Labour said.
All of the rallies that he attended.
Yeah, like he went to when he got announced as being the president-elect. He wasn't even in the UK. He was in America at his like rally where he confirmed that he was going to be the next president, which is interesting because he's not in Clacton. But yeah,
there's been a few interesting headlines about how he's not fully there as the MP, but he does, he's using his voice.
I think he's making himself seem like a bridge across the pond, like you said.
Yeah, like he wants to be as involved without being in power as he can. I guess it's kind of what most of these people try to do. They want to be in power but not have the responsibility and the kind of the expectations that a leader would have. So,
talking of leaders, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, he was in Ukraine yesterday and now is in Poland, in Warsaw today, to discuss a 100-year partnership between Britain and Ukraine. So Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, he said that this is truly historic and Starmer wants Ukraine to be free and thriving again. Do you think, because this plan, also this 100-year partnership plan, was founded by the Conservatives, but with now having a Labour government, do you think that Labour could end up taking credit for this in their legacy?
Potentially. I mean, it's not unheard of that you kind of carry over to a different administration and then that administration takes advantage of the good things which were previously good about the last one. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of revive this 100-year partnership and then say, yeah, that was all us. We did that. So thank us, you know. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
It's very easy to point out the wrong things, or like subjectively wrong things, because not everyone's going to agree that things were wrong, that like the previous government did. But something like that is probably not something that they'd acknowledge as much as how they scrapped Rwanda or something.
Yeah, and now do you think by doing this, Starmer could regain, so displaying himself as like the face of this relationship between Ukraine and Britain at the moment in politics, do you think Starmer is aiming to regain the trust of former Conservative voters, well, people who voted Conservative at the last election and have always seen Britain as this great power of, uniting? Do you think he could try, or do you think he could succeed in regaining Conservative trust?
I think, like, the patriotism and like, oh, Britain is great, is really associated with like the right and Tory and reform. So that is something that maybe Starmer wants to like take on board, like, and like get rid of those connotations that like we can still like love our country, but that's not necessarily associated with the other parties. I mean, you push that so much.
Yeah, look at the polls this week. Reform is only one point behind Labour. So if he shows himself as a patriotic, party, that may change, but we can't know for sure.
Because Reform's big thing is like Britain is great.
Yeah, like
let's fix
pride.
Britain.
Yeah.
So
I think there was a his name escapes me. The guy who's not the leader, but is the leader. The guy next to Farage in Reform.
Richard Tice.
Yeah, he was saying that like proud Christian nation, but like I've seen a lot of people kind of disagree with that because it's such a diverse country now that I think that doesn't necessarily apply anymore. Yeah, I just think it's definitely something which these parties can kind of see and then kind of twist to get support from those groups, and then use that to divert kind of emotions towards an opposition.
Do you think that other parties, regarding parties other than Labour, are going to use the changes in the economy, which haven't been so good recently, as a kind of way to attack Labour?
Definitely.
Yeah, potentially.
It's really easy to condemn the government in power when you're not the one in power. I think Labour did that a lot when Tories were in power.
Yeah, and now
vice versa.
Yeah, now the Tories are doing it to them. You know, with Kemi Badenoch, I feel like every week she's kind of coming out and saying Keir Starmer's not doing this right, and then
it makes you wonder though, why didn't you do that in your 14 years of power?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, even over Christmas, you're saying about how they're just attacking each other. Now, there was this one incident that I didn't even know the context of. It was about sandwiches between Badenoch and Starmer during Prime Minister's questions.
Yeah, something about Kemi Badenoch thinks that, like, breaks aren't good or something. I heard something about that, like, she thinks that, like, when people are at work, like, they shouldn't, or I think she said that she doesn't take a break or something.
There's something about maternity leave as well, I thought.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that was around the Conservative Party leadership debate. But yeah, with Rachel Reeves as to the current Chancellor, and I'm saying current because I assume she's still going to be current next week as well.
Yeah, or in the hour that we're still that we're recording this.
She's faced calls within the past week to be sacked by Keir Starmer, which probably could be affecting the polls, and also could be sending a very confusing message to the public who think, the government under, say, Boris during the pandemic, that changed a lot. If the Labour Party did that, because we've already seen Sue Gray leave, what message could that send to the public if Starmer does choose to like rejig the cabinet a bit?
I think it might kind of give the public this lack of confidence, and that will be very bad for them because we've said that they're very early on in the administration. So if early on we're already getting these signs that it's not a very strong foundation,
it's not great to see these.
No,
it
isn't. It isn't
at this stage as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Reeves has said that she is here for the long haul when she's been compared to she's been called truss in slow motion because of the, I wouldn't say faltering economy, but there's been issues with the economy, like over the festive period where people usually spend more money. There was like a 0.1% decline, which is weird when everyone's spending money at Christmas. So the pound dropped and the government borrowing has reached a record high in the first time in 3 decades, which is a little bit of a big deal when you think about how the Conservatives were in power for half of that time. Rachel Reeves said her decisions are correct and she is happy to be called the Iron Chancellor in reference to former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. This all just took some bizarre headlines. What are your 2 outtakes from this?
With the thing about being truss in slow motion, I feel like you can't really compare the role of a Chancellor to the role of a PM in terms of the extent of like your effect, I think, because obviously like you can do similar things, but I think calling her Truss in slow motion did feel kind of a bit like, I don't know, maybe like a bit too far.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think we're still feeling the effects of Truss's economy.
I mean, she actually sent a cease and desist letter to Prime Minister Keir Starmer about defamation, in him blaming her for crashing the economy. So,
But I think, like, from the data, you can kind of see that it's a bit true.
Yeah, like when she says she's in for the long haul, but then she's compared to someone like Truss.
who wasn't here for that long.
You can kind of see like the comparisons being made and kind of go with it, because I mean Truss thought that she was, she wasn't, she's like a fighter, not a quitter, but then she
And
resigned.
Then I'm resigning, yeah.
Yeah, so I think maybe hold off on what you're saying until you can actually back it up with evidence that you are doing a good job. Although, I mean, 14 years of Conservatives, it is quite difficult to kind of recover from that. And I think she said herself that she said something about you can't, it's very difficult to mend the economy after 14 years of it being kind of mishandled. So,
like you said, Chloe, they're all just blaming each other.
Yeah. It's back
Yep.
and forth.
Right, what are your predictions for, I suppose, for how Starmer's going to handle both these issues of the economy and the grooming gang scandal? That's going to be a harder one to predict for the short term.
I think he's going to keep Rachel Reeves, in my opinion. He said so as well, that she's going to stay for the whole term of the government. So I don't think that she's going to leave or anything.
What do you think about the public's reaction? Do you think it's going to become more positive towards Rachel Reeves, as as you said, it's been early on in the administration?
I think I'm going to be uncharacteristically pessimistic and say promises have been made before and they've not been kept. So I think there's definitely a chance that she could be either sacked or resign.
She hasn't kept some of her promises already, from what I remember. I can't remember the specific thing she said, but she's already broken.
Like national insurance.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, and like with national insurance, it's like when it goes up, the staffing costs are going to go up as well. Is that how it works? I never really did business, but I mean I did, but I didn't do. I did fine, not to brag. Yeah, I think. Yeah, as staffing costs go up and we kind of see the effects of that, like hours going down for people and pay being limited, I think the public's outlook is potentially going to decrease because those are the people who are going to get affected most.
Yeah, I think carers, there was a statement by the Carers Trust that said they're at breaking point with 6 million people struggling. And
It's worrying.
It's so easy to say things to get on the public side, but it's just, we said this earlier, action is needed.
Yeah.
Not just saying things to make people happy, which is a big thing that is happening a lot.
It's difficult to keep everyone happy though.
Yeah, it's kind of
true.
it's like the democratic, like there's like this issue where it's like you can't do everything. And so it's really difficult for politicians to make everyone happy. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point a big shift in the general public kind of leads to some sort of action being taken.
Well, thank you both for joining me today. Hope you have a lovely day, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, this has been amazing.
Thank you for watching at home. I'll be back with the next episode next Friday. See ya.